All right, so Ricky Cool here is with Danny Zelisko. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good, man. Congratulations on the new book, ALL EXCE
Thank you.
Occupation, man.
Thank you.
Like we were just talking about just a minute ago, I was saying how I was overwhelmed when I seen it, man. 60 chapters. I was like, there's no fucking way I'm gonna read this book. It's too big.
Well, it was 70 chapters to begin with. And you know, seeing as though I'm by and large unknown by anybody, but people have heard the expression concert promoter, although I don't know that everybody knows what a concert promoter is. So in the book, through my life, through my stories, and through some, definition, by the time you're done, you know what a concert promoter is. Is that fair?
You know what's great about this book is, I mean, it's ain't just like you're gonna sit there and be bored. You know, it's just a bunch of great stories. That and it's full of pictures and shit, man. It keeps you definitely interested. I read the whole thing last night, and I hate fucking reading books.
Well, I mean, I'm getting that a lot. And you know what? I think that should be like a byline for promoting it. If you read one book this year, this is it. Or it, especially if you hate reading books, this book is for you. This is an anti-book. Let me tell you why. And it was, not a miracle, or I'm not some super smart guy or anything, but it's just following my own instincts. Was when I was writing the book and I had all of these pictures and I had a bunch of really good stories. And a lot of the stories aren't really all that long, but they're great stories with some punch, and there's some pictures with most of those that help tell the story even bigger. But when I was doing the book, I had to try to decide, do I want this to look like a normal book or should just reflect me? So number one, I wanted it to sound like me, the way I talk, and I think I succeeded with that. But more importantly, when you get to go through the book, and it starts kind of at the beginning, and it goes through time for the last 50 years. What I wanted to make sure of was when you were reading about somebody, that you could see the pictures of them with the story, instead of burying the pictures like in a 10-page photo section in the middle of the book somewhere. And you always have to go backwards and check and see, which guy was that? I wonder if his picture was there. I wanted to make sure everybody was represented in real time, so you could go through that book and read it, in a nice flow. And that was just the way it happened.
Nah, man, if you're a fan of music at all, you definitely need to get this book because it has some fantastic stories in there, and you do it in a great way. I mean, I'm sure there's some gritty shit, man, you could have put in there, of, you know what I mean, but you kept it all cool.
There's definitely some stories, some outrageous, some crazy, some regrettable. I didn't want the book didn't have to be like that. It's not like a tell-all thing. I'm still in the business. You go start doing tell-all things about people you're still doing business with, you ain't going to be in business very long. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So there's no reason to do that. I mean, when you're privileged to be around any friends or acquaintances or people who are friends of friends, and stuff comes up that it's really nobody else's business unless you were there, I think those things by and large should stay there. Now, every now and then somebody's going to really, do something outrageous and you can't help but talk about it. But Guns N' Roses stuff was always fun. They, at the time, it was nerve-wracking because you just never knew what was going to happen. So it was exciting. That's what people want. If you could bottle that, every rock group in the world would have what Guns N' Roses has. But the fact is, they don't. And that's why GNR is so huge. They're just unpredictable, even now. For example.
Now, reading this book, man, you find out you had to hustle your whole life, man. I mean, even from a kid, you're booking sports guys for conventions and shit like that, talking and all that.
I didn't know at the time that that's what I was doing at all. I just thought I was helping out some players and some other people in it, and it turns out they call that networking, and they call that booking people. And I didn't know that at the time. I never heard the expression booking agent. There's no reason I would have ever come across, that kind of an expression until much later in life. But I knew the feeling of what I was doing, and I liked it. I liked being the matchmaker. I like hooking people up with each other for mutual gain, and I didn't really realize that's what I was doing at the time, but that's what it was, and it turned out that it was a really good instinct to follow.
What are you gonna do when all these people read this book and they start trying to pretend to be roadies to try and get their foot in the door?
Well, I'll let you know. I don't see it happening, but it hasn't happened yet anyway. The reaction to it has been really very positive. I'm really tickled and flattered by that, and I'm not just saying that. I really am, because it's a weird thing to put down stuff, even as sensational as a lot of these names are and people and friends. You don't want to use them, but I mean, I always wanted to just kind of unite the characters together with me as their conduit, and we ended up having a lot of fun, especially in Phoenix and Vegas over the years. Booking all these shows together there. It's been pretty crazy.
Now, what I liked about it, I mean, and not only does it shows how hard you worked to get where you were, but it also shows sometimes it's chance. I mean, when you picked up the hitchhiker and it turns out he works for Alice Cooper, I mean, who would have thought?
Sometimes we'll say, let's go out and create some dumb luck today. You never know. You just never know who you're gonna meet. And for a guy who's just thankful, I mean, how weird, pick up a guy hitchhiking. Hey man, thanks a lot. Is there anything I can do for you? And you want to come and work at our show next week? Alice Cooper? Oh, sure, okay. What was I doing?
Right.
So I went and was a security guard for Alice Cooper for a day. It was weird.
Yeah, I got to kick back and drink some beers with him and everything, huh?
It was like I walked into Wayne's World, man. It was so weird. Oh no, come on in, have a beer with me. And I'm walking in, I'm going to go have a beer with Alice Cooper. Perfect.
One of the stories that you shared that I thought was pretty cool is when you were working on A Star Is Born. I mean, I never thought that was an actual concert that was going on to get all the people in there.
Yeah, they it was brilliant. Barbara Streisand and John Peters hired Bill Graham to stage the concert because Bill was the guy to stage a concert like this. And I found out about it while I was working at this in I guess was in the end of 75, early 76. And I'm working in this waterbed store, selling waterbeds. And Bill Graham calls me up to talk about the show that he's going to do. And he's got Santana and Graham Central Station and Montrose. He goes, so of these three groups, who do you want to have? Peter Frampton, ZZ Top, or Johnny and Edgar Winter? And I said, well, right off the top of my head, I'd love it to be Johnny and Edgar, but they're not big enough for the stadium, that's all. And ZZ Top had just played there, and they weren't big enough either at the time. But it was Peter Frampton that I went for. He goes, interesting. I thought for sure you would have said somebody else. I said, he's got a big record coming. It was the Frampton Comes Alive record that was put out right around this show. And it was incredibly huge. So tickets were $3.50. And you had to be in the building by 9 a.m.
Jeez.
Because it was an all-day filming, and they had to have those crowd shots had to be the same, and they had to have at certain times, with the lighting and all that. They were measuring all of that for a week before the show, and that's where you got all those great shots of the stadium where Barbara and Chris are playing. But it was amazing, and Barbara went out at one point, and everybody, including her, I mean, it was one of the ballsiest things I ever saw anybody do. I mean, here's Barbara Streisand between Montrose and Santana,
Right.
right? Right, and she goes out and opens with "The Way We Were."
That's crazy.
Not a dry eye in the house. She floored this place. This audience had never seen anything like her before. She did like 5 or 6 songs, like her biggest songs, Evergreen from the movie,
Right.
And People was just, forget it. And it was one of the most astounding things I've seen on a rock stage. That's all I can tell you. I mean, she was the best of them all.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, I gotta know, what was it like introducing James Brown to your parents and having to be all polite, and then him having to turn around and say, was I, motherfucker?
Oh, James, he's going, "What are you doing paying me $6,000, man? Fuck you. I ain't gonna play no $6,000. Hi, James. Say hi to my folks. He just kept right up. He was great. You know, I love that James Brown knew my name and knew me when he saw me. And I loved it when the first time I did him, the guy that stepped in front of James to shake my hand was the Reverend Al Sharpton. That was his road manager. I mean, you can't make that up.
Right.
You know, I love Al. What a piece of work. Big newscaster now. It's really good. Cool guy.
Now, you almost fought John Cougar Mellencamp?
Well, I wanted to, and on all of his records where it says produced by the little bastard,
Right.
That's him. I mean, everybody's called him that his whole career. I didn't call him that, but you would have thought I did. And he didn't appreciate the equipment that he's performing on in a nightclub that he couldn't sell out. It was a 400 capacity nightclub. He sold about 300 tickets at $1.92. Okay. And now, so this means you're at the stage of your career where you're happy to have a gig routed and going from Los Angeles to your home in Indiana or whatever. And this is where you build up your loyalty and your friendships and a career, with promoters out there, such as myself. And he looked me right in the eye and said everything was great. And as soon as he got on stage, he just tore into me and said I should points right at me, says, "Go get your money back from this guy. This place sucks." And he ended up finishing the show, and he was great. But I wasn't in too good of a mood after that. I shouldn't have taken it so hard. I should have laughed at him because it's just, he was good. The audience liked it. He was the only guy having a bad time that night. And, you're going to get that sometimes. And you find that out when you do this kind of business. It's an extreme business. It's really an extreme lifestyle. And it takes extreme characters to do what these people do day in and day out. And some days you're going to hit some snags. I mean, here's me and you. We don't have to go out on the road. We're in our hotels or our offices, our bedrooms, wherever the hell we are, doing whatever it is we do. These guys are constantly, on the road. And for some of them, it just makes them crazy. And like we all get crazy. So that's the way I got it. I turn my head on when I'm doing a show like that instead of being quick to be, critical with these guys, because they're just as nuts as the rest of us,
For sure, man. Now, one thing I dug in this book is that you talked about all the venues that you worked at and all the things you built up. The one venue I haven't questioned, though, man, is Dracula's Castle.
Yeah, what about it?
You were gonna do some shows there, or what? What was going on?
Well, there's a guy named Derek Shulman who's a very successful record company guy. But before he was a record company guy, he was the lead singer for one of my favorite groups called Gentle Giant from England. And they've long been broken up and disbanded. And Derek and I got to be friends. And somewhere along the way, this guy, the Archduke of Romania, and Derek got together. I can't remember how they ended up meeting, but he wanted to do something with his castle, and his castle is Dracula's castle, which is located in Bran, Transylvania. So you got to fly to Bucharest and then drive a few hours to get to this place. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. And I mean, immediately, I thought to myself, I mean, Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Judas Priest, Scorpions, the biggest and the best they could have played. I mean, it's still there. It's still sitting there. The front yard to Dracula's castle is a field that it's called the Queen's Heart Field, which is where the Queen's Heart used to be installed into a locker in the side of this mountain. I swear to God. And this field could hold easily 15 to 20,000 people. And it would be the most dramatic setting for any concert, any hard rock, any kind of concert ever. And I still believe that. Alice went there. Him and the Hollywood Vampires went there, and they did some interviews and things like that. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. He loved it there.
Yeah, I remember when Headbangers Ball did that walkthrough with Danzig, and they showed it off. It was like,
did they do it?
Oh yeah, years ago, man. It was like that would be an amazing place to see a show for sure.
I saw this room there where they claimed to. It was off limits to the public, but it was just like a cell kind of a room where they claimed to have held Vlad the Impaler for 8 days. I got a very weird vibe off of it. I believed him. It was weird. It was bizarre, man.
Now, one thing I'm going through the book, I'm finding all kinds of interesting stuff about you. I mean, your work with comedians, the things that you've done. You actually you came up with the name Lollapalooza?
Well, Perry Farrell and I got from the very beginning of doing shows together. We found that we shared an interest in hanging out after the show and staying up very late. So we did that on occasion. And one night we were up especially late, and he was talking about this idea he had to do a show, but it had to be more than a show. It had to be more than a picnic. And he's just throwing out all these words. We're riffing back and forth. And he goes, like the world's greatest jamboree. And I said, nah, jamboree sounds like a Boy Scout thing. And the word Lollapalooza jumped out. I don't remember if it was him or me, but it was in that jam space of a conversation where it was like trying to come up with the perfect word in a word to define a day and an experience. And that's how it came up.
Now, do you ever think that we're going to have a festival like that again, like a touring festival?
Possibly. I mean, they could do that now because the show is so famous. But back in the day when they started it, back in the day, 30 years ago, 1991 still seems like a new year to me compared to older ones. But, it tried to tour for a few years in the 90s, and the world just wasn't ready for festivals yet. Not like that, but, and then the whole Coachella thing came in, and then Lolla came in South America, and then they brought it to Chicago, and the whole festival idea built itself back up again. But during the 90s, we suffered with festivals. They didn't do well at all. It's kind of like these things go in waves, there's a popularity wave where stuff is in or it's out. It's a fad or it's not. It's lasting or it's not. It comes back. I mean, look at all these careers that keep getting resuscitated. They go out of style for a while and they come back, and the same thing happened with festivals.
Now, out of all the things that you've done, I mean, the Grateful Dead in Las Vegas had to have been just absolutely insane. And I was 15, man. I was there. It was nuts. We met Timothy Leary in a parking lot.
You went to that?
Oh yeah. I could tell you a funny story. I was there. It was it was a couple of days, and a buddy of mine, I was only 15. He goes, "You want a job, man?" I said, "What?" He goes, "We're gonna sell drinks at the Grateful Dead show." We had to go and the inside there, and carry around like frozen lemonades or some shit and walk around and sell them. And they got us in early before the show started, and there was a bunch of us there, and we were smoking a joint, and we were in the back area, and this guy comes over and asks if he can hit it. And my buddy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." He goes, "Just about finished with it." And he flicked it. And I looked at the guy. I was like, "Why didn't you let him hit it, man?" I go, "I don't get it." And he goes, "Whatever, man. Come on, let's go to work." And it just stuck out to me in my mind. But I remember walking around, and I'm looking on stage, and there's Dave Matthews opening up. That was the fucking guy that asked us if he could take a hit. And my buddy was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh my God, what are the odds, man?"
That's funny. Funny things happen there. Yeah, those are the greatest shows ever. What a great way to go to work. I remember one day showing up there, one of the last shows. I got my shoulder bag. I'm going, this is the greatest job. I mean, what a way to go to work. Jerry Garcia is going to meet me here. Bobby Weir's going to be here. And we're going to have a show. And all these people are going to come and have a great time. And, you know, and it was in Las Vegas, which made it extra special. It turned into a really finely tuned machine. The people from Bill Graham's office that do the Dead shows or did the Dead shows back in the day, they were experts at doing Dead shows. I mean, and that's why they were so good. It was because of them handling all the stuff in the background so that everybody could be received and treated appropriately. Those were the greatest shows, truly.
Dude, it was a memory I'll never forget. I mean, you guys, it was, you know, technically Henderson is where it was, but it was, you guys took it over. I mean, I live in Green Valley, and I remember trying to call my dad to get a ride after the show, and there's miles of traffic, man. He goes, "You can't get in." I had to walk all the way back there, and it was just tons of cars and just a crazy experience.
Yep. Yeah, it was something else. Those were the days. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again.
So when do you think touring is going to start again fully?
I would say the fall. You know, with the way it is right now, with all the vaccinations going out, a lot of older people are now vaccinated. A lot of the bands that I work with are older. I think that part of the business is going to come back first. I think you'll see a lot of people feeling more comfortable about going out. I kind of like the idea, at least at the beginning, of having those quick tests for everybody to come into a hall. I don't know if that's going to be necessary now with all the vaccinating that's going on, but I would say by the end of the summer and the fall, we'll be having some normal type of events, and hopefully we'll be able to start, you know, filling them in 100% during that time, you know. But I think it'll be the smaller shows first. I mean, I'm in Hawaii, right? And yesterday we flew here, and I was on a plane that was probably 90% full. So you mean I can fly for 7 hours to Hawaii with a negative test from less than 72 hours ago, plus I've had both of my vaccine shots. I mean, I'm as covered as I can be.
Right.
And I've been here 3 times in the last 5 months. So my point is that I think I'm as protected as I'm going to be, and I still like to try to have a semblance of a life, which would include bringing people together and having some concerts. You know, it's an amazing thing about shows, you know, with everybody missing them as much as they do. I knew I chose a good way to go through life, or it chose me. I don't know which, but you know, to have people craving to do or be a part of what it is that you do every day is a really good feeling, even though it's because of a bad thing that it, you know, really hitting home. But I think we're all, you know, with music and shows and being together, when it's ready to happen again, I think people are going to appreciate it in a whole new way. And I really look forward to that. I really do.
Now, you think bands are still going to get paid what they were getting pre-pandemic when things start back out?
Mostly, Yeah, and where the correction will come is if there's any kind of resistance, or you have to sell less capacity in order to do it correctly, then they're going to have to adjust. But I wouldn't expect it to be, a lot, because if you have less seats to sell, because if you say you're going to do distancing, everybody that goes to the show has to pay a lot more money to make up for that money then, because you're missing seats.
Right, right.
So
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, with some states being at full capacity and others are at half or less, are these bands going to take a pay cut, or are their tickets going to go up for those shows, or are you going to skip those states?
you know what? I wouldn't I wouldn't expect to see much of anything in the way of discounts from the groups. I just don't. It's a nice notion. It's a nice thought, and it sounds fair to me. But what you have in promoter land these days is the land of opportunity, and there's only so many opportunities to promote so many great bands that are out there that can draw tickets. So if you get too good with these guys and you start going, all right, I'll pay you half because we're going to sell half the seats, the guy across the street will say, screw that, I'll still sell half the tickets and I'll pay you what you want so I can get the dates. They get them just to take the dates.
Right.
So it kind of can create a false sense of security in there. But at the end of the day, look, if groups or promoters or buildings or whoever make the wrong move and manipulate things a little too carefully or the wrong way, well, you're going to lose money on a show, and maybe you won't make that mistake again. But that's how you find out. Live and learn.
Now, I've seen that there's venues all across the country that aren't going to be there when touring starts back up. Has that affected you in any way? Any places that you do business there?
Not quite yet. Everybody that I generally do business with is ready to go back. But they've been closed for a while. So all these places all over the country, they're going to have to rehire staff. They're going to have to clean up their buildings, and then you got to get some stuff on the calendar. And that's the tricky part, is when do you get to start actually saying we're going to have this show on such and such a date. Like, I've got all my shows that we had booked last year throughout have been moved 2, 3, 4 times. And everybody who has their tickets knows what dates they've been moved to. We keep in touch with them. We send them notes to explain what's going on. And I think, like a badge of honor and a badge of courage, I want to put that show on, and those people want to see the show. And they're going to do it. They'll get it.
Now, one thing I got to ask you is with shows that you said they keep on getting postponed, people still have the tickets. If there's less capacity, how does it work out? I mean, how do you pick?
I don't, you know what? I don't see that happening. I don't see, I mean, for instance, if you had a sold out show and you could only use half the tickets, you'd have to split it into 2 shows.
See, that's, I've got tickets.
If you did that, you could take just as many good seats out of the show for the second one, and everybody could have similar seats to what they have right now. That would be one way of doing it. The only thing you'd have to do is convince the act to say you're playing 2 shows for the price of 1. Now that, I mean, makes complete sense, but what if the group can't do 2 shows in one night, or if they don't have the time to do 2 shows in 2 nights? That's where the problem is with stuff that's already booked. But with new stuff, it could be that way. Here's the thing. I don't expect that this is going to be like carrying on for that much longer into the future. I mean, we're going to have a hibernation period of coming back sometime this summer, as far as I'm concerned, unless I'm really off and something terrible happens, in which case this ain't going to matter so much until another day. But I think by the fall, I mean, I know a lot of big tours, stadium things. Everybody's thinking that's the time that this is going to happen. So I'm going to go along with that optimism, and there's not much else we can do except wait and see.
Now moving forward, I've got a question for you as a promoter. I mean, with everyone that just turned their back on Marilyn Manson in the music industry, would you book him?
It would depend on his reentry strategy into the world. Um, you know, unfortunately, these days we're living in a time where the mere mention of anything inappropriate happening gets you scolded, branded, and murdered as a public person. It's not fair. It's not right. But it's what's happening, and he's long been a controversial character. Um, so I mean I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really comment on it. Um, but I think he has a little career repairing that he needs to do. Even with his whole shock rock image and everything else, you know, he needs to repair that for his audience, because nobody wants to think that, like, of him, that he's done anything all that awful. But all I can say is this: his name is Marilyn Manson, and he walks around with a lot of makeup on and dresses really wild and does some pretty outrageous shows. Is considered a genius by some, a madman by others. Um, you didn't expect things to just go smoothly, did you? He's no fucking altar boy, okay?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm just saying on a promoter stance. I mean, it's a shame that you have to worry about the damage it could do for you as future shows, even though I mean, I think he'd still sell out shows, no doubt about it.
Probably, I mean, the sensational types of news and headlines and behaviors can really create even more interest in people sometimes. But when it comes to situations with ladies and women and people who possibly have been wronged, I'm not saying anybody was here, but I'm just saying, when they start squawking about it in public, you got to take care of it. That's all there is to it.
Definitely. Now, moving forward, people want to buy the book. They want to know more about you. They want to see some of your shows. Where do they go? What do they do?
We have a website called dzplive.com, Danny Zelisko presents live.com. And you can buy the book there. There's stories and pictures and stuff, other interviews that we've done are all there. So you can find out anything you want about the book there. You can order it from us. We'll send it to you from our office in Arizona. I'll sign it for you if you like. Otherwise, we're selling them at Amazon, and the Amazon book, let me show you this, because you have the book. Let me see here. Where'd it go? Nope, almost. See this? I made one this size as opposed to this size.
Right.
That's how the original one was. But when we did this for Amazon, because I wanted a Kindle, they said you can't do it in that landscape size book. You have to have it like this. So we had to reformat the entire book from the scratch and make it like this. But what's cool about it is they said, well, you got room for another 60 pictures because of the way it reformatted.
Right.
So this one has more pictures than the original one does. And there's some really, really cool stuff in there. But I like the way it's sized out completely different. And it looks like a completely different book. It's really fun.
See, I was curious about the size. I mean, I got the digital copy, so I didn't get to see the actual, how big this book really is.
Yeah, I see. Originally, I didn't intend it to be like what they call a coffee table book. That wasn't what my goal was. But I just liked it sideways better because I felt like I could do some bigger pictures, more pictures on a page, along with the writing. And it was when I finally settled and agreed with myself to do it that way, was when I was able to pick out all the pictures and decide how they were going to get laid out and all that. And it was quite a process. But once you click on the direction or the goal of what you're going to finish with, it becomes a lot easier. But it was a mystery up until then. I've never done it before.
So are you still delivering copies too?
Yeah, shit. Somebody, I was charging $100, and I gave the money I made from that to the Save Our Stages thing for the stagehands that have been out of work. I haven't been asked to do it in a while, but I do it.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Sure.
Well, like I said, man, the book was amazing. I mean, if you're a music fan in any way whatsoever, pick up a copy. There's some fantastic stories. I mean, I read it in the night. You know what I mean? I couldn't put it down, literally.
I'm glad you liked it. I really am. And thanks for having me on this. I appreciate it. I hope all your people that are listening to you all the time will check it out.
Definitely, man. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Take care, buddy.